checking styling again, and this time what we will do is get pseudo classes. So you can see this is format for pseudo classes. If we are talking about type, there is an li element, and you can see we have this column going on. Important example, and then the top example we have same thing, this column syntax. Normally, when you see things like first child, first dash letter, that means we are using pseudo classes. And to explain them better, just uh, switch to code. It will be more easier. So in this page, I am working with pseudo classes folder here, and there is this work in progress file.html, wip.html. What you can do, I already have a little bit markup that is going on, and we can just play with the styling in style section and see how these pseudo classes work out. So first of all, let's see, we have this paragraph that is spanning on multiple lines. And instead of index, let me do UIP. So this is the preview. Now what we can do, I can say, give me a paragraph and this P and curly brackets. This we use for styling a P tag. But if we are interested in a specific instance of a P tag, let's say with a class line, then we can type like this. Either we can use dot line for class level selector that we covered previously, or we can do p dot line. So p dot line means give me a target a paragraph with a class with value line. Yeah. So it will match this paragraph. And now we can go further and we can say we can use pseudo classes. So first we can use this first line. So this pseudo class first line means we want to target first line of the paragraph. What we can do with first line, we can say your font weight, sorry, will be bold. And just check this out. And you can see it's a little bit bold. We can increase maybe font size a bit, 24 pixels. And you can see like our changes applying to the first line of it, first line of this paragraph. I took this text about Linux from Wikipedia, so there is that. Now we can, there are other pseudo classes. Let me target this alpha one now, a paragraph with class alpha. And we are saying we will have a pseudo class of first letter. So this first letter means it will target this first letter of first line. Yeah. So now we can say with color and font size again. Say we can preview our changes, and you can see this changing first letter or first alphabet of this paragraph. So first line apply to first line, and first letter will only target first character. We can do a little bit more on style, italic. So you can see it's there. Now there are some other useful pseudo classes available. For example, we have this list going on, list of drinks. So what we can say, like we want only the first item or last item to have a different style here. So we can target or select this list. We know it has a class drinks, so I can type drinks here. And let's say for drinks, I'm saying your color will be maybe Brown. Let's go with one offset. So you see they are all brown. Now what we want to do, we can say, but first inside rings there are allies and first child, first child should be of hmm, maybe it has a different color. Let's say it's blue. So you can see all the items in that list have brown color, but we can target first one. Let's take another example of another pseudo class. What else? So there is this last child. We can say same rule for the last child as well. So now we can target the first and the last thing. And this is usually important, like if you are building a navigation bar or something that is coming, generating dynamically, maybe from a database, and you are interested either playing or controlling the rendering of first element or the very last one. Maybe you are removing some extra space. So these pseudo classes will help you. So first and last child we cover. First letter and first line we also cover. Then there is another thing. We have two articles. This article, article A, and then article B. Imagine long text is going on there. So what if we want only first article, yeah, to be targeted without applying some classes or something more? What we can do, there is another pseudo class. We can say article and then first of type. So first of type means as soon as you encounter first of this article type, only target this one and apply our CSS rules to that element. So I can say your color will be orange, and let's check it out. And you can see it's only targeting first of this type. Yeah. If we had three articles, let's say article B as well, and we can copy these rules and we check what else is out there. So last of type. So now I'm trying to say first and last will be orange. And you can see this is happening again. So these different pseudo classes will help you to target either the beginning or the end. And they are very useful based on your use case. So there are other properties like uh, you can also target the nth element. Nth means n is the number of items you supply. Like it could be like if we are starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like there are four elements here. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we can say maybe 2. So we can target this key element as well. But there are like these kind of cases are less frequent than the first and last check. And once you are good with or once you are comfortable with these pseudo classes, you can discover these a little bit more advanced cases by yourself. So I'm just gonna use these elements in this demo and hopefully it will work out for you. Now if we switch back to slides again, so these were the pseudo classes and the nth child. Just let me quickly show you CSS nth child. That so you can see this was the property I was talking about. You can say li, like if you have multiple li's inside a UL, you can say nth child, and then you can supply this code like minus n plus 3. So here you are just giving a number, or you can use these kind of words, reserve keywords like even and odd. So every even element will become this light yellow. Yeah. And here, if I'm changing the value from 3 to 2, you can see I am first capturing first two elements. If I just remove minus n and only use positive thing, so it's using second element. If I'm using 3, then it will target the third element. So you see how it's going on. So this is the example of nth child where you are not like locked with first element or the last element. Using this syntax or this nth child pseudo class, you can target any element. It can be a first or last. First is easy target. You can just pass one, but you don't know how many elements are in there, like in how many allies. If they are coming from a database or some script, they are generating dynamically. Then in that situation, last child will help you out. So first letter and first line I covered already. So this is very important. And let me show you the original slide for this thing, like from where this concept came from. So this slide, if you Google around, like if you Google like CSS specificity, and you will eventually find this website. Link is here, stuffandnonsense.co.uk. And like this infographic actually got updated, so it's a little bit different than my slide. Yeah. And I open this image in a new tab from this website, from this article actually. And here you go. So what is CSS specificity? It's actually the scoring of your CSS selector. And what I mean by that thing, this A is actually your selector in CSS. If you just type A and in curly brackets you write some code, that means you are targeting all the elements of type A, and they will be styled based on your CSS rules. So here in my example, article was element selector, and inside curly brackets, all these rules will be applied to this article element. And in our case, since in pseudo class, it will be applied to first of its type. Yeah. Take example of this strings rule. We have here class selector, and whatever code we written here, like color brown, it will apply to all those elements which have class with valued rings. So this is how CSS. This is your CSS selector, and more specifically, this is your class selector, and these are your CSS rules. You can apply one rule, or you can apply 4 or 5, whatever you want to do here. So what's happening here? If you have a, if you're only using one element selector, you can see one multiply one element selector here. Yeah. So you have these three numbers going on from left to right or right to left, however you are saying. On the most right value, this is equivalent to 1. Second one is equal to 10, and third one is equal to 100 place. So if you have only one element in your CSS selector rule, yeah, that means your power is equal to 1. Your CSS specificity is 1, or you have, in simple words, your CSS score is 1. So now, if this is on the top, like for example, I'm dictating some rules, color should be black for all the things, yeah, for all the A-level elements. So we discussed this. If we come down, and now I'm saying redeclaring some other thing, I'm saying now pink. So now all the A-level elements will be pink because we overriding this value. Yeah. But if we add, because the last item wins, and they both have, like there is more logic to it basically. They both have how much score? one for this and one for this, and this is coming later on in the file. Like this is the last instruction, so it's winning against this one, and these changes will be overriding these ones. Yeah. But what if we have something like this? All the A tags or A elements inside body elements. Now, what will happen? Score of this thing is there are two elements in there, one body and one A element. So total score is two. You can see in Visual Studio, it's showing me selector specificity is 002. Yeah. So its score is two, whereas this one is only one. So even though this is the last one, this will lose against higher score, and these rules will be applied. So all your links become black. So just to show you, let me see. Let me make this family thing a link basically. Okay, the I'll go back here. You can see is black. Let me make water also this a link and set Eric on it. So now it's black. So instead of we are like we see the pink links, we are having black links because the CSS rule of 2 is winning against this CSS rule that is having one score. So if we look back at this chart, you can see if we were using two elements inside our CSS rule or CSS selectors, there are two element selectors there, P tag or P element or A element. So the total number of elements is two. So we will write two here. So now what if we were using a class dot foo? So if we have a class, we will, how many classes are in there? Only one class dot foo. So per class is equal then to 10 score. So we only have one class, so we will put this one in middle. So you can see it kind of reading like 10 already, yeah. So classes have 10 score, and if we write our rule like this, like there is element and then there is a class, a combination of both. Here we are saying give me uh, all the A elements that has with class foo. So all A elements will be captured or selected with the class foo, applied to them. So what is this score? You have one element and one class. So you will type one here on the right bit, and in the middle bit, since you have only one class, so you will type one again, and this is reading like 11, so it is 11. So score is 11. Now, if we are reading this selector, here we have two elements. So we write two here, one class, we put one in middle, so it's 12, 10 for class, two for elements. 10 plus 2 is 12, so 12 here. Here you have two classes, so you will put two in middle, so total score is 20. And this is the theme. Classes have 10 score, elements have one score, IDs having 100 score. So take this example, p dot foo, we are saying give us all the paragraphs with class foo, and then we are saying give us all the inside those paragraphs, you will find a element and give us all the a elements inside paragraph with foo, which has class bar. Yeah. So first we are selecting all the paragraphs with class foo. Imagine there are 10 paragraphs. So then we are saying inside that paragraph with foo, yeah, give us all the elements and only select the elements with class bar. So here you have two elements and then you have two classes. So total score is 22. Two here, two here. And this is your ID selector. If you use ID selectors, you put one on the leftmost bit. So it's 100 now. Yeah. Total score is 100. Now, if you are writing this selector like this, you have one element and one ID, then you have 101. 101. If you have sector like this, one class, one element, and one bar, one ID, I mean, then all bits are one. So it's 111 or triple one. If you have two classes, so it's 120. Two classes and one ID, one here, two classes there. So it's total store 120. And if we are using uh, this inline element, inline styling that we covered, I think, in our first part of this video series, like this style, and I'm saying your color will be pink. Put semicolon as well. So this become pink now, even though we were targeting first element and everything. So this style will override your normal CSS, and this is equivalent to 1000. You can see there now we have four total bits, and leftmost bit is one, so it's 1000. So style attribute have 1000 weightage or 1000 score. And then you might see this important as you will progress learning this CSS and frontend stuff, or if you are checking some source code of your coworkers or maybe from GitHub or something. If you see this, and if you see this a lot in your CSS code, that means something is very wrong. And this overrides all the things, but you will reach to the situation where your rule or your styling will be competing against important. So what you will do, you will also use this important, and then you will not know like which important is winning and from which file or from which vendor or from which UI library or from which framework is coming from. So generally try to avoid this thing and only use it if your life depends on it. Yeah. And I think if you are a Star Wars fan, you know what this thing means. Yeah. And since they are showing this Death Star with importance, so take the hint and be very careful. Now, coming back to the slides. So we covered browser default style sheets. We covered user style sheet and CSS reset and box model in this slide. Yeah. So let me just quickly recap in case you missed it. What browser styling is, uh, if I go back and turn out these two roles and then just refresh the page, you can see this link becomes blue here and this link becomes blue here. This default blue color and underline is coming from browser. So this is for browser styling. So this is your browser style sheet. What user style sheet is? Style sheet means imagine I make a website and I have this font size. So I don't know like what is the actual font size of this paragraph. It's also coming from default. So if we click on compute it and I go down a bit, and let's see. So what we can do, let's say I am giving a font size here, let's say 16 px here. I'm saying my paragraph will be 16 pixel. Let me increase a bit or decrease a bit. I wanted to see if it's working. So let's see, this is the font size we used while designing our website, but this font size might be too little for few people with the not so great eyesight, or they're facing hard time to read it, even though it's readable for them, but it's not very easy on their eyes. So there were extensions that enhance that these kind of things. So even if your web developer is writing 13 pixel for font size, with those user extensions or browser extensions, what you can do, you can see, okay, font size should not be less than 18 pixel, and it should be always like Times New Roman. And these extensions like go a bit further, and maybe you will find extensions like Facebook user experience or UI enhancer or Facebook dark theme mode or something. So whatever Facebook developers are putting out there, whatever font size, whatever colors, maybe this extension, if you have it installed, it will change the appearance of this thing. So these kind of things file under or comes under this user style sheets, where you have agents or extension installed that is overriding developer styling written by web developer. Yeah. What is CSS reset? If you can see here, I have this spaces going on. This is also coming from browser default. So browser default is not only just controlling this how text is rendering, what kind of font size is coming by default, what kind of font family is coming by default, but there is also some default spacing coming, from browser. So what you can do, this is where CSS resets were popular, and one easier and but heavy on the performance reset is using this static CSS selected. That means match everything, match HTML body. Like if you have 1000 HTML elements out there in HTML specification or standard, that this will match all of them. And what can I say? Just make margin 0 for everything, and also do same thing for padding. So if I save this thing and refresh, now you can see those spaces are like removed from my default styling because I'm resetting at least spacing part of browser defaults. What is box model? We touched this a bit briefly, and in this slide we will touch it more. I have shown in computer tab. I have shown you this box model. So this thing is currently box model by my P element. You can see it's 14 by 1440 pixel wide, and it's almost 65 pixel or 64.500 pixel in height. So this is your content box, because content, this is the space your content is reserving to display on your screen. After content, you have this padding box. So right now there are no values around it. What I can do, let me put borders around it for this P. Borders, applying border is like kind of my behavior to debug how much space one element is taking. Like where are the boundaries of this element? Okay. I use two things for this purpose: borders and background. So first border, solid yellow, let's say. So you can see a border is going on there, and what I can do, I can also apply background pick. So I know this paragraph, this is the actual width and height, or actually the area covered by this paragraph. Now, if I go inside this thing, and you can see padding is not specified. If I put padding here for this paragraph, let's say padding all over 5px. So now you see there is a little bit space for now. If I increase this space, now text is not starting from the border of the box or from the edge of this paragraph box here. It is taking some space, and actually I increase it to 20 pixels. So 20 pixel from top, left, bottom, and right. So it's actually clockwise, top, right, bottom, left. So you can see this in computed area as well. So left is having 20, top is having 20 pixel, and right is having 20 pixel as well. And then what padding is, essentially padding is the space between your content and your border. Yeah. So after padding comes your border, and you see we apply 1 pixel all around, 1 pixel border of yellow color, and then you have margins, and margin is the outer space. So margin is actually the space between two boxes. So you have this box. If I specify a margin, let's say I'm saying margin bottom. So if I say margin bottom 20 px, and if I increase this number, you can see it's pushing the next box or next element, that is block level or whatever, is saying give me 45 pixel, and then you will render. So it's pushing next item 45 pixel down. So margin is spaces between two boxes. and you can control one box margin to push another next box into each direction. So I could say if I supply margin top, so I'm saying this paragraph will have space, top space from the previous box that is, top just before this paragraph. So if I'm saying 40 pixel, you can see now I'm saying okay, to the first element or the element just before me, I'm saying okay, I need 40 pixel space from you. So top means this, and if I'm putting space bottom, I'm instructing next element. Okay, you go ahead, you just push yourself 40 pixel down or 50 pixel more down, and then you will start rendering. I'm occupying this space. The margin is essentially space between two boxes or two elements. So this is your box model. You need your box model constitute of essentially your content box, your padding box, how much inside spacing you have inside a box. Then you have a border. Like border is also contributing to the width of element. Like if you have 5 pixel border on each side, that means 10 pixel. So either content will shrink or box width will increase depending on what kind of doc type you have. Like if you're working in IE6 for some government organization, then Chrome will have different effect. If you are playing with the paddings and borders and old version like IE6 or 7, they will have different behavior depending on what kind of doc type you have that we discussed earlier, like XHTML1, transitional and strict. If you are lucky, you will be working with the latest versions of browsers and probably will not see this thing in your life. So then you have border and then you have margin. So this complete whole box model thing. And this was in my slide as well. You have content width and height going on there, then padding, then border, and then margin. So this is essentially your box model. So now we have some typography. So with typography cases, what we can do, we can play with font sizes of elements. We can change the font weight, like bold or normal. We can change the style, like italic or non-italic, I guess. And you can also change the family of it. You can also change the line height that is mentioned here. Also the letter spacing and word spacing. So let us go back to our code and just use this pseudo classes for this thing. And let me target this line thing, or maybe just copy paste this thing. Yeah, come here, paste it here, and say LH for line height. I close this thing, and now we can play with this paragraph with class line height, and we can say line height is 20 pixel and font size is 18 pixel. Oops. And if we refresh our page, now we have this paragraph. We inspect its properties and style tags. We can see line height is 20 and font size 18. These two properties play a very important role if you want your text to be readable. And another property that is like taking your text more readable to user is width property. So even if P is block level element and it's taking 100% space, what you can do, you can say 400 pixel, and then you can maybe increase the width a bit. So what I'm trying to do, if I'm using 100% width, that means you, whoever is reading my text, their head will be like scanning from one end to another end. So if I have shorter width and my text is wrapping around like this, maybe their head movement will be not as much wide, and it's essentially easier to read this kind of text, and obviously font size within also like make your text more readable, how much small it is, how much big it is. But if I only play one with one property, in some case like this, where line height is smaller than the font size, you see my letters are like trying to push together. Basically, they are like going, one line is rendering into another line, especially here where P is pushing into this 1991 number. So if you have font size 23, maybe it's a good idea at least have a line height either to this size, like 23, 23. Both numbers should match. But for greater user experience, add few more pixel to it until you feel like, uh, at least for you, the line height is okay and text is more readable. Like if I increase it too much, again it will like feel very awful to read this kind of text where there is too much space. So you have to find a balance. And normally these things come from UI designer inside a Figma file or Photoshop file. Uh, they will tell you what kind of font to use, what size to use, what line height to use, and maybe if they are very specific, they might also say uh, how much space is between words, yeah, or how much spaces should be space between in a space between letters inside a single word. So you can with CSS you can control all these properties that designers normally use to control inside Photoshop. And we just play with line height right now. And you can see I play with width, font size, and this text is easier to read, at least for me, compared to this one. And typography plays a huge role in web design. It's not just about putting images randomly left and right or just doing curves or whatever is design trend nowadays. So with this thing, also play with, let me copy these three things and delete these to align this. And let's design browser because it will be much easier to understand. Let's say if I'm saying word spacing, you can see word spacing properties there. And I say word space should be, let's say 20 pixels. You see how I'm controlling the space. If I increase the value by pressing up arrow in my keyboard, I'm increasing the space between two words, and your paragraph looks like this. Very zigzag, very hard to read. So let's not go crazy and come down a bit. So I think 5 pixel or 4 pixel, I think, or zero. Let's start with zero. Zero is good for me, but let's see. Maybe you want to do 2 pixels, so now each word is having 2 pixel of space between them. And you can also control space between letters. So let's see, letter spacing. Let's say 4 pixel. So now if I increase this number, space between letters is increasing or alphabet is increasing. You can see this family. Each letter is containing 14 pixel of space. So if I decrease it, now it will go back to normal. So we covered word spacing, letter spacing, line height, width. These are some common typography properties along with font size, of course. I mean, color is color. Let's say red. I don't know. Just put something beige. So this is a decimal code of gray. You can control. If you click on the color, you can control colors like this, and then you can see what value is there. Beside color, you can also change font family and assign any font that is installed into your system. So this fantasy font, space font is there. So let's say using this monospace for this paragraph. So look how much different it is. And we also cover font weight. So we can say bold. Now everything is bold actually. And font styling. Alice, that's the I'm going through all of these that I used a lot during my projects here while doing my different projects from more heavy design to more text oriented ones or documentation things. The typography was playing huge role, so I was using all these things, and maybe there is a text decoration thing that I'm saying underline. So now it looks like some government paragraph, some contract kind of look and feel. And then there is this text indent. And this was useful when you had some text. Like imagine if you are making a hyperlink or a tag, and you want to make a essentially if you don't have an image and you have a text written like click me or sign up. So sign up what is written there as a text. What you can do then load a background image for that a element. So maybe some bluish background is there with moons on it or your country flag or dollar sign on it. What you can do then you want to hide a text because like your images are working, your JavaScript is working, CSS is working. So maybe hide images, hide the text. So what you can do -9 mm, think of a bigger number, and you can see now text is shifted from your view. So if I put 0 px here, text is here. If I'm using the minus values, you can see it's going off from minus. So this technique was used for browsers who are facing hard time. Maybe they do not have CSS enabled, or they have CSS disabled actually using some extensions. So you will see the text there, and if you have CSS enabled, you will load image and you will hide text by using this text indent property that I just shown you here. Now we come to background images. And with background images, we have multiple things going on. You can specify background, like what image file you want to use. Then you can specify the position of that background image, the file you just choose, where you want to tag from the element as a background. You wanted that image to render from top left corner or bottom right corner or the middle of it or the top center or bottom center. Like you can enter it with these values, and you can also specify this position using percentages and pixels, like with px format that we have been using so far. So let me show you background images. So let me close these files. So this is example of repeat background. You can see here we have different text going on our div page. And what I'm doing, and this background is actually coming. So file is inside background repeat.html, yeah. And I'm loading an tile one image from images folder that is one level above. So if you want to go one level above, what you can do // that means like go out from this folder. So come out from this background folder and then find images folder that is there, and then from images folder load this style1.jpg. So you can see I'm specifying inside background element, sorry, background rule, I'm specifying the URL property, and this URL is loading this file. And then I'm saying for positioning, top left, I want image to be, load from top left. I can use pixel values as well, but for now I'm using these words like top left, bottom right, things like that. And I'm not specifying if it needs to be repeat or not. So it will be repeated by default. And you can see inside our browser on the HTML tag, here this rule is top left and scroll. So for background, I supply three areas, three main things: URL, positioning, and the scroll property. Ignore the scroll for now. You can see if you hover over this path, it will show you the image file that is referenced. It will also show you the size, file size 10.6 KB, and also show the width and height of it 398 pixel into 302 pixel. And we are not saying anything about repeat. So by default, the behavior is repeated, all the way. And if I zoom out, zoom here, you say like if I had huge projector display or Apple Cinema display, doesn't matter. It will cover all the HTML element because the HTML element is taking 100 pixel width. I mean 100% width, yeah, and 100 pixel height. It's covering your whole viewport. If I'm resizing my browser, it will just HTML is covering full area, right? And I'm saying, and since I'm attaching this background to HTML, and I'm saying nothing about repetition, so it's repeating on x-axis, and also y-axis, so horizontally and vertically. So it's covering the whole page. So if I specify here how to repeat or not to repeat it, actually, let's say I say no repeat at all. You see, so now you see this image render only one time because we are saying do not repeat. If I'm saying repeat but only on maybe x-axis, x repeat dash x, so now it's repeating horizontally. If I'm saying repeat y, so it will repeat vertically, it will cover only in height wise. If I'm not saying anything, then it will repeat on both axes, x and y. So it's covering the full page. Now let's cover scroll property like real quick. You see when I'm scrolling my page, this background is also going up. You can see. Let me change. There is another property for scrolling. We can say we can use fixed. Now you see images. While we are scrolling, images fixed. It's not moving, and text is scrolling. So it depends what kind of UI or UX your designer had in mind and what you want to do. If you want only your text to scroll, image to be fixed, you will change this position. I mean, property to fixed. Otherwise, keep using scroll, and this way, background will move along the way. So we covered this thing, but let's change instead of top left. Let's use another example because will be more clear with that. Let's see position. Position HTML. So same thing. We are attaching an image file to this HTML element. We are saying here, no repeat, do not repeat it. So if I had like bigger display, remove this property. So what I'm doing here, I'm saying use this image file, do not repeat it at all, and use 0 pixel and 0 pixel as for positioning. So align yourself from 0, 0 and use fixed property and use a scroll because right now we are interested in positioning. So if I'm increasing this number, so you see it's changing from the left. So now your background is starting after 17 pixel. It's offsetting itself from 17 pixel from the left side. So this position is left if you are dealing in pixels or percentages. So next one is top. What I'm saying now, 10 from top. So now your background will be 20 pixel offset from the top area or top border from wherever your element is started. Maybe I have this rule for body tag or some p tag. Yeah. So if you are adding more values instead of 0, 0, that means like you are saying, okay, just do not immediately start my background. Skip some pixels and then start using background. So right now I'm skipping 17 pixels from the left and 20 pixel from top. So this is your positioning. And again, scroll, I explain. Background is scrolling, and if I use fixed, it will stay there. Yeah. So let's go back to the original sizing and remove this and say 0, 0. Or you can say top center. And so now you can see its line background is attached itself from top and center. If I say top left, so now it's top and left. Now it's top right, and text is here. You can see. So it's up to you, like what kind of use case you have. You can either use these words like top, left, right, center, bottom, or you can use pixel values that we have been using, or you can use percentages. Everything will work. And if you have 0, you don't need to specify pixel because 0 is 0. Doesn't matter if it's pixel or percentages. What else is there? Fix and scroll, we cover background repeat, we cover background positioning, we just check and specify background. So this was one more thing. One CSS3 property that I like to use a lot that I disabled just now was this background size. So background size is stretch my image and try to cover uh, this element using this background, like stretch it, resize it. Just I do not want to see empty space, yeah, or blank pixels. Cover everything using this background. So background solves cover will let you do that. And now if I doesn't matter if I zoom in, zoom out, it will try to readjust itself. So if that's your use case, this is your best friend. Another counterpart of this thing is all contain, and it will contain and maintain its aspect ratio, or its original aspect ratio. So this is another property. So you have two use cases. Either you maintain your aspect ratio and you will see the blanks there. In case you have large display and your background size is smaller, then has smaller resolution than your display resolution or your screen resolution, and you have this contain property, then you will see these spaces. If you switch this to cover, it will cover and try, but you might not see some of the background that is there. You can see this jellyfish is kind of flipped, but it's covering the image. So if you are using this background image just for decoration, then maybe using cover is a good thing because depending on there are various screen sizes, or user can just simply resize their browser that I'm trying to do. So this thing will align itself, and it's not, if it's not completely showing up, it is for decorating these paragraphs. So if it's clipping or adjusting every screen resolution or window resize, if it's out of position a bit, doesn't matter. It's a decoration image. But if it's an image with some important information, like with some notice things, some important instruction, then it should not be background in first place. But if it is, then at least use contain or do not clip anything. Just play with the width and height of element, and that element should have like at least width and height of the background image, so it can show all of the image. So in my what I do, if that image contains some kind of important information, or if it's uh, important for a user, then I do not use it in CSS as a background. I put it as an image tag inside HTML, so Google search engine can also index it, and I use proper naming. Like if it's a notice for like some foreign policy on some government website, so I will probably use some image tag like tax policy or visa policy 2023 for XYZ country. So if you are searching visa policy for XYZ country, maybe based on that image, Google will show you this web page or this website. So now we covered images, at least the basics of it. I have highly recommend use this CSS3 background size property for resizing your image and stuff. Now comes the most important part of HTML and CSS is this floats. So floats, as you can see on the screen, lets you construct your web page or at least the layout of it, like how you will lay out different elements on your page. You will have a two-column layout or three-column layout. How much spacing like will be there between these elements? Uh, which element will contain which one? And you can see like we have spaces going on there. Then this is a group of maybe four cards, and then there is another group because there is too much spacing between these two sections. And inside this section, you will have a one column, and then second column, and in first column you will have two vertical elements. So based on how you are placing these boxes and what kind of load properties you are using, you can achieve complex layouts like this. And loads is kind of tricky because they have some gotchas. So let me show you floats in code. Let's go floats.html inside floats.html and floats to or to to for float. So this is very basic example of float. Yeah, let me show you in code as well. So you can see we have a container, we have a div, and this div probably contain, not probably, for sure is containing these two major divs. Let me collapse them. So this container is having this sidebar inside, and then it's contain another div that's called page. So this sidebar is our left area. Essentially, we want to build a two-column layout. Yeah. And then this page is our right side area where main content and paragraphs or images, what have you, will go there. So it will be much nicer to look here. We expand body. You see, inside body we have a div with container class. Inside container we have another div called sidebar, and then the page. So if we check the CSS properties on sidebar, we see we are using float left. Just for a second, let's say we are not using float left. We are removing every styling from this element. So this is the default behavior, like we covered it many times until now. we know this is div, so it's a block level element. So it will cover 100% width, available to it from container. Container is also a div, so it will also take 100% width coming from its parent element or its container element, which is body. Body again is a block level, so it will again take 100% width. So I'm kind of bubbling up from one div to another. Ultimately, body is coming from HTML, so it's taking 100% width that HTML is providing. And if you can see, I'm putting my cursor over HTML, and in this area, you will see width and height as well in a small bubble. So it's saying HTML and 1425 pixel width, 1420 pixel, 425 pixel. If I check body, again, same width, 100%. It's using what's coming from HTML element. I check container, 1425, same thing. This sidebar div, same thing. This page, same thing. So they keep occupying whatever their container is providing and using same 100% width. Now we want two column layout. So what we do, we know from normal flow, rendering is starting from top left. So this sidebar div is taking 100% width and is starting from top left. When this div comes into play, it knows, okay, there is a div above me. It's taking this much width and height. So I will render myself just below it, and then I will take 100% width. What float does, with float we can not only uh, with float you supply two values, either left or right. So right now I'm using float left. I can also say float right. So now maybe you have sidebar on the right side. So you can achieve this by using right here. I will go back to left because this is more normal to me, I guess. So once you apply float left, your element kind of becomes something more closer towards inline block. Why? It will take only the width and height of the its content, what's inside it. Yeah. So it will instead of using 100% width, now it will take width that is necessary to hold the maximum content inside it. So if you can see, the Facebook is the biggest link. So this sidebar is actually just barely covering this maximum width of Facebook. So total width is right now 58 pixel, 58.63 pixel actually. So as soon as I put float left and I'm not specifying any width, it will shrink itself to its inner content width. Yeah. So this is one property of float. Second, it's take use of direction. If you upload on the left side, it will move towards left side. If you're uploading on the right side, it will move towards right side. Third property that is kind of invisible is that actually if you have more text then it is visible. Like when you are floating some element, it the next element that is coming after it, in our case, this is the page element. It no longer knows about how much space this floated element will take. And there are two cases, there are actually two attributes with this statement. One, yeah, it will not know about this thing because this thing is pulled from the normal flow. Whenever you float something, it pulled from the normal flow. So this page is kind of not aware of it, and I'm using the kind of due to something. And let me show you. So imagine, let me put some background color for this page element, so we know like how much space this div is taking actually. And I say background red, so you can see. And for sidebar, let me say background yellow. So if you can see this background, this div is actually rendering behind this thing, behind this sidebar. So element itself doesn't know about it, or the box model of this element coming after the floated element doesn't know about box model of this thing, so it doesn't provide any spacing to this element. Yeah, but content inside this page element the actual text of it. Yeah. Even you see the paragraphs boxes also doesn't know about it, so they are rendering behind it. But the text, when it encounters the floated element, it tries to wrap around it. So you can see this text is started from the as soon as this floated element is stopped or ended, text started and it keeps rendering. And when the height is ended for the floated element, now text going all the way to the left. So these are the two properties. Boxes will have no idea about the floated element, so they will go behind it. But the text or content inside those boxes will eventually wrap around it. So if you want to figure out, like, if you wanted a layout where imagine there is some picture, you might see this layout too many times on websites. Maybe you have a picture here, and what you want to do, you want text started next to it from the top, and then wrap around. Like maybe this is some bio of some famous leader or some famous product, maybe MacBook or something. So maybe you want this kind of layout. So what we can do instead of just talking about it inside, hmm, what I can do, use this p tag. Oops, use this image src dot images, and maybe that tile thing will work for us. And self close this thing, save it, refresh it. So remember I told you just now, this is kind of like when you float some element, it becomes kind of like inline block element, yeah. So image is inline block, but you see the difference. It's not completely 100% inline block element if you float it, because if it is inline block element, you see Pakistan or this text is started from the bottom of it. So it says, okay, you took width and height, you are inline block element. Okay, so I can sit next to you, but it's a line itself from the bottom because this is where this element ends. But if I float this image element to the left, float left, now you see this text goes up and started from the top and still wrapping around this image. So this I was talking about. And if you wanted to control some space, you can either control the space of the text if it's into a new element. In our case, we just have free text going on. We don't have like one image element and then some other element that is covering this text. So what we can do, we can specify images on, I mean spacing on this image itself, just like we did before. We can say, okay, just use margin 10 px. So now we are applying 10 pixel margin all around. And if you want to only margin on the right side, so text have some breathing space. So we can do that. Margin right. Let's make it 20 pixel. So you can see now I have 20 pixel margin going on to this thing. And if I increase it, you can see it's only changing the right spacing between this text and this thing. So let me quickly move this thing here somewhere important. Refresh. So this was float left. Let's try to establish now again that sidebar kind of thing. Open this, open page, apply some background. Okay. You can see it's going behind the sidebar. Now here what I'm doing, I'm saying float left, remove the margin, and I'm saying my sidebar will take 300 pixel width. I'm not controlling the height of it, but only the width. So with floated element, you can now say width and height of it, and also you provide margin and spacing, whatever you want to do. So this will become your bar, or I can say minimum height at least. Min height is 100%. Yeah, or let's say 500 px. So and it has a background of okay background or maybe darkish. Let me type background again. I'm yeah. So now you can see I have this kind of background going on, and essentially I want 100% width and 100% height. But right now, uh, this is wrapping around like this. And for that, I need to supply these heights to the containers as well, like body, what's the body height and what's the HTML height to have a 100%. So this 100 pixel height takes into effect, or what I can do, also this page thing, I can supply if I want truly, I don't want the wrapping around to this sidebar. I can say 600 pixel maybe. Yes. So now you can see still it doesn't have any idea and it's wrapping around this thing. So just to make two column thing, what you can do, you can put this page element itself float left. So now you have this main area. So if you want two column layout, what you want to do, you want to float elements and then you supply the width of it. So if I remove the width, it will just like uh, try to compensate the long paragraphs. So it will go below this sidebar. But if I knew like my total page size is let's say 1000 pixel and I want my sidebar to take 200 pixel, that means I'm left with 800 pixel. So I can do something like this. 800 pixel sidebar is let's say 200 pixel. So that means I can say to my container like your 1000 pixel and this is your layout. You maybe want to do 50 pixel or and then you can say 50 pixel spacing between these two elements so they do not like shove into each other. So this is one way of doing two column layout. I just plotted both elements and I apply widths to them. Yeah, so this is very important. You need to do both. Essentially, you need to do these two things to achieve this thing. But now again, there is a problem with this approach, and that is called essentially it's deal with the layering of floats. So as I shared with you, like if you are floating element, you are taking pulling it out from the normal flow of your rendering, and next element doesn't have any idea about this element anymore, and the text eventually wrap around the floated elements. But also, parent doesn't know about the floated element if all it has, all the children are floated. So you know we put float left on sidebar, then we also put float left on the second element, second child. So this container only had two children, sidebar and page, and they both are floated. So now this container, if I hover over it, you can see height here. The bubble will appear. Height is 0 pixel. Width is 1050 that we specify, but height is 0. So now this container is not properly wrapping around these things. And to show you what I can do, I can maybe put a red color behind it for our container, and you can see nothing is happening there. It was a 0 pixel in height. How we can fix it? One easy fix that will not that will maybe cover 90% of the edge cases, depending on how you are using floats to lay out your page. So in CSS or in Dynamic, generally it's a good idea to know to do something with at least you know like three or four methods to do single thing. Yeah, same thing by using three different approaches or four different methods. So if one method fails, you come up with the second solution. If that's not working, then use the third one. This is how it works. So mostly what I use this property on the container overflow and then hidden. So now you can see this container is actually wrapping around this element and taking the height of the maximum element, that is the page itself, I mean the main area or this page class, that is 900 pixel in height. If I move my cursor over the container, you can see div.container is here in this bubble is 1050 into 900. So now it's perfectly wrapping around to the maximum height uh, of its children, yeah, to one of its children or the tallest of its children. So now you can see background red going on there. I can also put border bottom maybe 1px solid green padding bottom 2px. So now you see we start padding a little so you can see border more clearly. And also this, so you see this green thing is going on there. So this is one way to force container to take into account of its floated children so it can render properly and take proper space instead of just showing 0% 0 pixel height. And sometimes it do mess up your layout in different browsers. Or while you're working with JavaScript, if you are playing with width and height stuff using JavaScript, you will get zero values even though the page is fully showing all of your text and all of your paragraphs. So this is good idea if you are doing floating. Just reset the floating or clear the floats on the container. This is one way overflow hidden. Second way, different you know uh, people were using it. Yes, if I just remove this overflow hidden again, what they were doing, they will create another div or any element basically as the last child of this container. So if I edit HTML here because I don't want to lose the styling I did so far, I know this page is ending here. So just before the container div is closing, this is the last div for container here. I create another div and I maybe apply class called clear on it to give you examples. So now we have three children, sidebar, page, and this clear. And I make a mess with a here. Now it's clear class. So on this element, I can say clear both. So what they were doing, it was another easy fix, but I don't like to use this thing. Uh, Technique is you put another child, last child inside the container. So total elements are above, and this last child you put clear both as a CSS rule, and it will clear uh, left float and right float. This clear means like I do not want any float on the left or right. So container will reevaluate its site and properly wrap around the total elements. But the downside is you are pushing is the same loop that I shared earlier in this series that do not put elements just for the presentation sake, like that italic element that is making your text looks italic, yeah, or tilting it or make maybe just you know what italic means. I don't I'm having a hard time explaining italic. So same goes with the B tag to make it your text bold because maybe you don't want it to have it bold anymore down the road. So same, you are just putting a lot of text, a lot of markup, a lot of content that is actually not content and is only there for presentation sake. So either use this thing, or there is another third method that is not so tricky. It's also taking use. So you can see I have two classes on container. One is container itself, that is applying background color red. We have a sidebar that is there. And let me put background color on sidebar as well. So this is your sidebar. And then you have this page that is also floated. And we do not have any third element. But what we are doing, we use clear fix, this clear fix class. Ah, is using this thing that we supplied in actually, let's call it C4. Yeah. So now we are having this container element that is wrapping around perfectly using this these two floated elements. Yeah. We do not have any third element in there. Container doesn't have overflow hidden on it. Instead, it's using this pseudo class after. It's putting an empty content here and then styling it display as stable, clear both sides, and this works in latest browsers. I'm running Microsoft Edge right now, and you can see page is 974 pixel, yeah, in height, and container is also 974. So these are three methods. You can either use overflow hidden, that I prefer. Then you can use this clear float, or a class twist method where you are using actually after pseudo class to clear out the floats. And the last one is just put a div or some element there and call clear both on it, and it will essentially do the same thing, but I do not recommend that thing. So this was float. We already talked about display, line block, and stuff. So now another thing about layout is positioning. Positioning is easier than floats. So let's open positioning and start with the relative one. So I can hit right top page here. So what I'm doing here, I have two classes here, two divs. One is div A and then second one is div B. I'm using some rules that are common between these elements for both divs with class A and B. I'm saying both will be 400 pixel wide, both will have 200 pixel height. Content inside them will be bold, and they both are floated left. Now A will have some separate styling, like it will have red color as a background, white color for text, and it has 90 pixel left positioning. And for B, I'm also 90 pixel for this left property. And for B, I'm telling, okay, your position will be relative, and then I'm setting top and left properties. These top and left properties uh, work in combination with this position rule. So let me show you how it looks like in browser. So if we inspect on it, so you can see this is left, our A element or A box, A div. So this A div is actually not taking into account about this left positioning. And you can see because right now the default positioning, if you are not specifying anything, is static. And with static thing, that is the normal thing. You can, if you specify left and top or right or bottom, you cannot move your box, you cannot move your div or whatever element you are trying to move. It will not take into account of these rules because for them to take into effect, you have to specify position rather than static. And normally you are playing with three properties: relative, static is by default, yeah. So total four. But if you want to shift elements, you either use position relative, position absolute, and then position fix. So first start with relative. You can see this be a div plus b. Div with plus b's have improved background. It has position relative. So if I remove this position, it will just sit nicely where it's supposed to render. So it's just rendering since it's a floated element and a is also floated. It's just pushing itself to this floated element as much it can, and without any space, it's render itself. But if I'm saying position relative, same effect because I'm not specifying top and left right now. I just block them. But if I say, okay, wherever you want to render, because it will render here. This is its in normal flow. This is the position it's supposed to render, and you can see it's rendering there. But I'm saying wherever you should go, just take 10 pixel off from that position and move yourself 10 pixel from your position and move from the left. So if you're moving from the left, you will push in towards the right side. So if I open this rule, you can see now I am 10 pixel offset from the left position. And if I increase this number, I will keep going towards right. So I'm offsetting from the left or pushing from the left. So that's why the box is moving towards right. Since position relative is there, I supposed to be rendered here, but I will keep moving there here to opposite direction, and I can open our top thing. So now I will push 10 pixel towards bottom because now I'm offsetting from top using 10 pixel. I can either use top left. I can play normally with two properties in this combination, top left, or I can go bottom left or bottom right. So things like this. So I can also say maybe from bottom 10 pixels. So now it will push towards upwards. And I might say right. So now it's pushing from the right. Yeah. So since it's pushing from the right, it's now going to the left. And since in the rendering, if you see the elements order, it was coming after a element, I mean a class, they with a class. So in rendering order or in visibility order, browser will render it on top because it comes after it. So this is like position relative, and then there is another property while dealing with position. This z index. If we wanted to have, where is our, so imagine it's coming on top because it's the second element and this is first, so this is the last element, so it's taking priority. What if we want this to go behind a element? I mean, I keep saying a element, I mean div with a class here. So what I can do with z index minus, normally I don't want to play with minus, but let's see. You can see now I'm saying, okay, have a negative value. So assuming default z index is 0. So now I can change the order of uh, rendering or visibility to user. So even though it should supposed to render on top, I can push it back if I give smaller values compared to the other div, or I can give equal number, but since the order is there, it comes after A, it will win, or I can keep giving more value. Imagine there is a third div in green color, red and green both. share zero z index and this has 1000 or 50, it will override both of them. It will render on top both of those dips. So this is position relative. Position relative, what essentially it's doing is it's render element from like from where it's supposed to render, and then push from that original position. So that is position relative. So your reference point was where you're supposed to go, and then you are offsetting from that point. Position absolute is a little bit trickier than that. So let's see absolute now. So this is absolute positioning. What absolute position is, so you can see I have two divs, red and blue, that are like absolutely positioned, and then there is this third div that doesn't have absolute positioning but relative. So anytime browser encounters a positioning absolute on some div or some element, yeah, what it does is try to look, it will go to the parent of this div. So this div with class B, this parent is this class, is this div with class rel, and you can see position is uh, you know set on relative. So when you encounters position absolute, the reference point becomes anything, any parent. It could be immediate parent or somewhere in the chain which has set its positioning to relative. So reference point becomes any parent that has set position to relative. So in our case, this is here from the top left, but imagine, let me give it a color of pink just for uh, you know for reference, and then I can move it maybe 10 pixel down and 10 pixel left. We wanted to do that. 10 pixel left, 10 px. So now all these children div with absolute positioning are using this rel div as a reference point. So rel div is starting from here. So they are taking 40 pixel. This red one is taking 40 pixel from the top. So if I put 0 here, you can see it's not going towards the edge of the browser. It went to the parent element and just started from where the parent element is starting, because parent is this rel thing. So and since its position is relative, so this is the reference point. So 0 means wherever this rel class is starting, rel position, this class with rel, wherever this is position myself or position this div to them, to that position. Yeah. So if this is position on 0 0, I mean 10 pixel from the top, red will also be 10 pixel top, because reference pointer is this pink div with class rel. If I remove this uh, left property, so it's 0. So you can see now it's attaching itself to the this reference point, that is this div, and going to the top left corner. So the 0 0. So origin will become, or attachment position will become this 0 0, this corner. Now if I increase the number for A, let's say to 10 pixel, you can see reference point is this corner, and I'm keep going towards left. And if I play with the top, then I will keep pushing from that area. And if I remove this position relative from here, so now this is taking into account from where body is starting. This position absolute will go towards from where your body element or because that's the your immediate corner that is visible to user, that is rendered in your browser window body element. So now reference point will become, it will keep going towards parents and checking, do you have position relative, do you have position relative. If none of them have position relative, so it will attach itself, it will make body as a reference point, and from body it will take 10 pixel towards left or 10 pixel towards bottom, whatever you write here. Reference point will become body element. So it will push itself from top 14 pixel and 24 pixel from left. So that is rendering here. If I again open this position relative for this step, now again they are catching it. Both of them have this as a parent, and this parent has position relative. So both of them will be rendering according to this div that is position that has position relative and class dot rel, and it's rendering as a pink background. Let me put left other thing, more, add more space to the left, and maybe 100 pixel from top. So now they are pointed with this pink element, pink div, yeah, with class rel, because position is there. I think I repeated this position a lot, and um, you get the idea about it. Um, then we have static. I told you already is default positioning. Fixed is kind of easier from all three. With fix, what you can do, and let me open fixed in here as well. So this thing is fixed. This Skype logo. Imagine this is some small navigation bar. With position fix, you can see with this class social W, I position with value fixed, and I'm saying top 150 pixel and left 100 pixel. It can be anything. I can say instead of left, go towards right side. So you can control all these things. 10 pixel from right, yeah. Instead of top, maybe use bottom, and from bottom maybe only 50 pixel. So maybe I want this kind of layout. So you can either put in this corner, you can go top, you can go bottom, you can go left, or you can go right. So all four corners are there, and from each corner you can push yourself or adjust your position. So with fixed positioning, your reference point will become this body element or browser window, yeah, from where browser Chrome or browser UI or browser panel is finishing and your page is starting. So fixed positioning means wherever your page is starting, position yourself as reference to that body element or your um, viewable window or your viewport basically. And with fixed positioning, your elements just stay there. No matter like how much you scroll top, bottom, or left or right, it will be sticked or stitched there. Yeah, it will not move once this position is defined. So this is fixed position. You might see some website have on the bottom right. If you scroll, uh, go to top button appears, and if you click on it, it will take you to the top of the page. Yeah, and that arrow is always that take me to the top button, or this kind of icon is always sitting there. It is not changing its position no matter how much scrolling you are doing. So this is achieved using this position fixed property. And there you go. This was the simplest from all three. And this is another example of fixed positioning in slide. No matter how much scroll I do, this fixed positioning will always be there. Yeah. This is the example of relative where this div is supposed to be rendering here with this dotted line. So it will take itself as a reference point where it's supposed to go, and then from that reference point, it's pushing itself. Yeah. Absolute means I have a parent And if I don't have a parent, then it will be a body element. And I'm pushing from my parent to the top or left or the bottom or right, whatever direction I want to choose. But I'm looking for any div or any element that has position relative set to it until I go to the root element of my page. These are some resources. Um, like if you want to further investigate CSS properties or HTML elements in details, you can go to CSS tricks. HTML5, if you dive into HTML5 elements that I didn't touch, like aside, article, video element. So one, because this was the basic kind of thing that I wanted to touch for absolute beginners. After maybe playing with what I shared with you for a month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on how much you can absorb and how much understanding you have developed, like your own understanding, your own words, your own concepts. Then maybe dive into HTML5. Also, uh, check other websites like Alistapark, CSS Weekly, Smashing Magazine, and for documentation. Although you might see me opening this website W3C tools, try to not and this thing when you Google something, this thing show up on top normally. Instead of this, try to read if you're talking about front-end thing, try to read Mozilla documentation. Mozilla is the company behind Firefox. Their documentation is much more accurate and as per standard compared to W3's tools. So use this thing as your reference. What else? So that's it. If you have any questions, something was confusing, you want me to redo any part, like use some other phrases or words, some other examples. Maybe I didn't justify or explain properly, let me know, and I will record another video about that part only. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.